Hello and welcome to the Ellen Made Book Club. Today I'm gonna do the Booktuber Name Tag. I was tagged by Pat at Book Chat with Pat to do this tag. And the tag was created by Aaron at Aaron Read a Book or Aaron Read a Book. And he had a little statement. These are all great channels that you should all subscribe to immediately if you haven't already. There are probably several hundred other channel names that would work as prompts, but these are the ones I thought of. There are some channels on this list that I'm subscribed to already and some that I will have to check out after doing this tag. But first, let's get into the prompts. Prompt number 1, books I'm not reading. A book that's been on your TBR forever. For this one, I'm going to say White Teeth by Sadie Smith, which I have been wanting to read for as long as I can remember. It came out in 2000, and so I would have been 12. And I don't think I wanted to read it then, but I remember hearing about it and it being like this huge sensation. I don't really know what it's about, but I just read a little bit on the back. It's set in northern London in 1975, I think, and it has topics such as fate, race, gender, history, and culture. And that sounds like something I would enjoy very much. So I don't know why I have never read this. I haven't had it, but like it's been available. So yeah, I don't know, but I have it now and I'm going to get to it at some point, and I'm very happy about that. Prompt number 2, novel iDeea, a book with an interesting premise or plot device. So for this one, I have 3 books, which I thought fit very well with this. The first one is The Measure by Nikki Erlich. Everyone on Earth wakes up to a box on their doorstep with a string in it, which tells them how long their life is going to be. And then we follow, I think there are 8 different characters in this book and how they choose to act. Do they want to open the box and see how long their string is? Or do they just want to forget about it and pretend nothing happened? If they do open the box, how is that going to affect their life decisions, their relationships, and so forth? And yeah, I thought that was really interesting and I loved this book. The second one is a book that I just read now in June, which is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I don't want to say what it is. I just thought everything about this book was fantastic, and I don't want to give away too much, but just if you haven't read it, please read it. It's great. And the third one is Hours by Philip B. Williams, which is set in the 1830s when slavery is still a thing. And there's this woman who has magical powers and creates a concealed town where she brings people who have been freed from slavery. And I think that's a very interesting plot device. I haven't read this yet, but I'm going to read this summer. It says on the back that as this creation starts to crack and as those cracks are exposed, some begin to wonder whether the community's safety might be yet another form of bondage. So there's the magic of the concealed town, but then, people start to break the rules or whatever and sort of question if this freedom is actual freedom and, what is freedom? And yeah, I just think that sounds really interesting and I'm looking forward to reading this one. Prompt number 3, Revenant Reads, a book where someone has returned from the dead. I don't read a lot of scary things, so I had a bit of a hard time with this one. And I do have a book in mind, but I feel like it's a spoiler to use it for this prompt. So I'm going to mention 2 other books instead. The first one is a book that I don't really mind spoiling, and it doesn't really fit with the prompt, but kind of. And it is The Men by Sandra Newman. It imagines a world where all the men suddenly disappear, or every person with a Y chromosome, and follows the people who are left. And There are also sort of videos coming out of these men, but it's very unclear where they are, where did they go, are they dead or are they gone or what happened to them. It wasn't one of my favorites at all, and it doesn't really fit the prompt, but kind of. The second book I thought of is Fool Me Once by Harlan Coben. This is about a former fighter pilot called Maya Stern, and she sees her husband playing with her daughter on this like nanny cam thing. It's just that her husband is dead since 2 weeks ago, and so how is he now back from the dead? I don't think I enjoy this book a lot either, but it's the one I could think of, and so that's my answer for that. Prompt number 4, CriminOlly, a book where a crime takes place. So this one was a lot easier and I had a lot more to choose from in my shelves, but I'm going to go with The Maiden by Kate Foster, which is a book I liked a lot. This was nominated for the Women's Prize for Fiction this year. It's set in Scotland, and there is a lady who is married and she takes a lover, and the lover is the man that gets murdered. There's also a prostitute in this town and in this story, and those two women are the points of view in this story. The lady is the one who's being accused of this murder, and she's been sentenced to be beheaded, and that's where the story starts. And then we sort of have to follow along with the story to find out what really happened and how that's gonna go. I really like this. It's historical fiction. There's a crime. It's written from the point of view of two women in very different life situations, and yeah, highly recommend. Prompt number 5, Book Time with Elvis, a book about time, time travel, or someone named Elvis. And like a lot of other people have said, I could not find a book with a character named Elvis, but I do have 3 other books that I thought I would mention as an answer to this prompt. The first one is a book that I think I read but can't really remember, and that is The Hours by Michael Cunningham. I think I've seen the movie as well, but it's been a long time and I would like to reread this. I'm not sure it's about time, but like the title is about time, so that's my first answer. The second answer is Before the Coffee Gets Cold, which is about time travel. There's a cafe in Tokyo where the guests can have a cup of coffee and go back in time to meet someone at a specific time, and they have to be back before the coffee gets cold. They're kind of short stories but interlinked, and I really liked it and look forward to reading more in that series. And the third book I thought of is a book I haven't read yet, but I hope to read in July, and that is How to Lose the Time War by Amal El-Mokhtar and Max Gladstone. It's kind of a science fiction-y, romance-y kind of book. I think it's a love story, but it's also like there's a war about time and space somehow. I'm a bit confused but very intrigued. I think it's quite short, and yeah, looking forward to that. Prompt number 6, middle of the book March, your favorite book that you read in March. So I had a really good reading month in March. I read a lot of books for me, and I read a couple of really good books as well. I think I read The Maiden in March, so that was one of my favorites as well. And I also really liked Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes. I listened to that on audiobook, which is narrated by the author, and it was amazing. It's a retelling of the myth of Medusa and sort of the other myths that are connected to that story. And yeah, I just loved everything about it. I also read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I loved that as well. That's a more contemporary and historical fiction about this old glamorous Hollywood star. It's about her relationships and the reporter trying to figure out who was really the love of her life. And yeah, it's a really good story. It's really well told. It's very engaging and interesting, and sort of there's more to the story. Prompt number 7, Book Buds. A book with a great friendship. It seems like I skipped this question when I was filming, but my answer was going to be The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, in which one of the husbands is a particularly good friend to the main character, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Prompt number 8, Obscure Book Adventures. A book that you love that never gets talked about. I think this book was talked about quite a bit when it came out in 2013, but I don't really hear people talking about it now, and it's a book that I love. And it is The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. I hear people talk about Neil Gaiman all the time, but it's not usually about this book. I don't really know how to describe it. I think the title, The Ocean at the End of the Lane, is very sort of telling for how the book feels. And I'll just read from the back in case you are not familiar with what this is about, because I can't explain it. This is what he remembers as he sits by the ocean at the end of the lane. A dead man on the back seat of the car, and warm milk at the farmhouse. An ancient little girl, and an old woman who saw the moon being made. A beautiful housekeeper with a monstrous smile. And dark forces woken that were best left undisturbed. They are memories hard to believe, waiting at the edges of things. The recollections of a man who thought he was lost, but is now perhaps remembering a time when he was saved. Both a pitch-perfect fantasy and a moving examination of childhood memories and their effects on our adult lives. Just read it. Prompt number 9. Savage Reads. A book with a monster or a beast or a human acting monstrous or beastly. So for this one, I'm going to mention Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes again. And it's the story of Medusa, and it talks about what a monster is and who gets to decide that and those kinds of questions. And yeah, I just thought that was really interesting, and I thought that fit the prompt very well. The other book I want to mention is Marina by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. This one has monsters and humans acting monstrously, and yeah, it's very creepy and very horrifying and very good. It's a YA horror, and yeah, I really recommend you read it. It was really good. Prompt number 10, a book that fits your own channel name or the name of a channel that you love. I really tried to find a book that fit with my channel name, but I couldn't find anything. If you have any suggestions, please let me know in the comments. And I also tried to find books that fit with a lot of different channels that I love watching, but I couldn't find books for a lot of them. So I'm gonna just mention 3 channels that I love watching. The first one is Book Chat with Pat, who is the one who tagged me to do this. And I told her on her video that the book I thought of for her channel name was Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. I haven't read that book, but I just think the title fits very well. The next one is Chelsea at Libraries and Lattes, which I think is inspired by Legends and Lattes. Is that the title? I haven't read that either. The one I thought of was Before the Coffee Gets Cold, just because, you know, coffee and stuff. And the third channel is Cat at Curious Cat. And for that one, I have The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon, and White Cat, Black Dog by Kelly Link, which links us back to Kelly for the first prompt. So The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon is a mystery told by a teenage boy with autism. And so he is the main character, and he is also the writer of this book, sort of. His neighbor's dog is murdered, and he decides to try and solve the mystery of who did that. And he ends up finding out more than he maybe bargained for. And White Cat, Black Dog is a short story collection. It's modern retellings of fairy tales with like magic and horror and weirdness. I haven't read this yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know why I can never pick this for my monthly TBRs, but one of these days I will. And yeah, I just think that cover is so pretty. If you are not already subscribed to Chelsea and Pat and Kat, I really recommend that you check out their channels because they're all really great. And yeah, I think all that's left for me to do now is to tag some other people. So I'm tagging Catherine at Raspberry Reads, Sandy at Miss Reads a Lot, Kat at Curious Cat, Sui at Sui's Book Banter, Nikki at My Messy Bookshelf, Jay at Faceless Book Reviews, and Gina at The Library Mouse Gina. I would love to hear your answers, and I think that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.